Hey everybody, how are you? It's Lisa F. Miller, and I've decided to do my live during the day today at 1:30 because I've got some other stuff on tonight. So how are you? I hope this lighting's okay. It's not the best, but yeah, we'll go with this. So how are you all? I just wanted to talk about being triggered today. What can you do when you're being triggered? Why? Because last night I was triggered. Because I am human, and even though I have these amazing tools, these things happen for me too. So last night I was online scrolling Facebook as you do, and I came across some people talking about their points of views on something, which happens on every thread, doesn't it? It is a place for people to talk about their points of views, but on this one, they were being unkind, and I'm not judging them. This is not a judgment, this is my awareness. There was an unkindness and an unkindness to a big group of people, like a whole country as well. So I was very shocked initially and like, whoa, I can't imagine this person being like this. And also they are talking about people that I know and love. So it was a bit of a shock to begin with. And who's that sending me a little heart? I can't see any comments. All I want to say is when we're triggered, it's not just about that person and what they said and what they did, okay? I'm only triggered because I saw later on I had a pattern. And my pattern was, and this person was showing no gratitude for those people and no gratitude for a situation. And I'm not going to go into detail. But what I saw was why it triggered me is because my business is around gratitude and supporting people to not judge others. So, of course, it triggered me because it was about something that I had going on where I haven't done enough in my business because there's still people out there triggering others and judging others. And as if I can make everyone stop. But this is what was going on for me, and I saw that later. So it triggered me because of that. And because I don't like unkindness. I've got a point of view that there's something wrong with it. What if there's unkindness and kindness, but if I don't go into a point of view about it and I don't judge that person, it makes it easier for me and easier for them. Obviously, if it's abuse or something like that, I'd step in and do something about it. If it was happening in front of me on the street, but I'm talking about stuff online, is it really my job to go in there and fix what someone is saying to someone else? It's not, and I saw that. So number one, you have to take responsibility for what is your stuff and what is theirs, and allow them to be and do what they want online because that is their truth. Hey Pam, how are you? Well, number one, I have to be an allowance of them because that is their point of view. And truly, guys, there is no truth. There is no set truth. Everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has a different perception. Everyone has a different way of looking at the world because of their own lenses they look through, because of their own upbringing, because of their own points of views and the way their brain was wired when they were little. So I have to allow someone to have their point of view. And obviously in that moment last night, I was triggered. I was not quite an allowance of them having their own point of view, and I've seen that. But also it triggered a deep thing underneath that I hadn't done enough. I hadn't done enough to shift people's points of views back to gratitude. I hadn't done enough to shift people back to not judging, because that is the aim of my business. But actually, I'm not going to get to everybody. I can't. How many trillions of people are there on the planet? So I had to let that go. And number two, a trigger is a chemical reaction. So what was happening in my brain was a chemical reaction. And that's why we say it's got a charge on it. It charges you, and it literally does. It either is going to charge you to feel really low, or charge you to feel, hey Angela, how are you? Or charge you to feel really aggressive or angry or whatever. It's got a charge on it. It's actually electrical. So there was a trigger made in my brain from what they said. Now, is that about them? No, it was triggered in my brain. An old pattern, an old pathway, an old synaptic pathway was triggered. It's an electrical charge. So this is my stuff, my part of it, my stuff that was triggered, okay? So whatever they said and did, if I didn't have something that matched that, there would have been no chemical reaction. But I had something going on with me where I couldn't allow them to just be them. And I was wanting to fix everybody on the planet and get them out of into gratitude and out of judgment. So I had to see that I had an old synaptic pattern. Okay, so there's another thing to do. When you're triggered by someone, it's always about you as well. So it'll be about them. It's always about their point of view too and what's going on with them. But there'll be something with you, okay, that triggers it. So when I saw that, I could sort of really start to look at it in a more neutral way. Number three, it's just an interesting point of view, what they're saying. It's just an interesting point of view. And if you can see it like an interesting point of view, you won't allow that trigger to keep going. So obviously I allowed that for a few moments, and then I saw it as an interesting point of view. It is not my point of view, and I choose not to have that point of view, but it's an interesting point of view. And I literally tell my clients to say this to themselves. That's an interesting point of view they have. Well, that's an interesting point of view I have. So if you have a brain pattern that's been charged and triggered around judgment of you, you can also say that's an interesting point of view that I have about me or about them. Okay? So I started to see what they were saying as an interesting point of view. So there's different tools that you can use to step you out of the triggering. Now, why would you want to be stepped out of the being triggered? Because, of course, you're going to be taken down into fear, shame, blame, regret, guilt, anger, rage, whatever that is, sadness, depression, by someone else's thing. And all suffering, hey Belinda, all suffering's outside of us. All suffering occurs in the brain, regardless of what's outside of us. All suffering is in the brain. It's our response. Okay? It is truly our response. Obviously, abuse happens physically and stuff outside of us, but look at the people that actually can have gratitude for that, because they choose a different way to be. They choose a different brain pattern. They choose a different way to be in the world that doesn't allow them to keep being in anger and rage and shame and regret and guilt. And think of someone like Anne Frank, sitting in a little wardrobe for 2 years in an attic with all those people. She obviously stopped being triggered by where she was. She chose a different way to be, and she allowed people to have their own point of view. Hey Jenny, how are you? Long time. So that's another thing you can do, is allow them to have their interesting point of view and allow you to have your interesting point of view, and see it as an interesting point of view rather than there's something wrong. Because as soon as you see what they say is something wrong, you are triggered and you are suffering. Now, this is not easy to do, I know. And it took me a little bit last night, because what I saw was unkindness. It was what I would call unkindness. However, is it my job to fix it? No. And I nearly replied, and I went, no. I am just rewiring my brain to go into more reaction, okay? So these tools are designed to get you out of reaction and resistance, and we are trained in this. From young, we are trained to judge what others do and say. We are trained to judge ourselves. Hey, how are you? Miss Lovely friend I haven't seen in a long time. My lovely Sue. So yeah, we're trained to be judging. We're trained to be reacting and resisting. So the key to not being in suffering, to not being in pain, to not being in that stuff is not to react. And these are some ways to help you. So see it as an interesting point of view, or their point of view, and you have your own point of view. See it as their truth, and that you have your truth, and stand in that. And I don't mean the truth out of here. This stuff is not always the truth. You've got some interesting patterns and thought patterns and subconscious patterns that really, when you dig deep, they're not true for you. So you're going to have to find a truth that's in your body as well. That's that deep, deep, deep knowing that goes beyond the brain. And I teach people how to do that. But yeah, we need to rewire our brain not to be in reaction, because otherwise we rewire it to be in reaction. And every time something happens similar to that thing, we react. And of course, we're taken out of our flow. We're taken out of our ease. We're taken out of our joy. We're taken out of gratitude. And we lose our power. As soon as we're reacting to something outside of us, we have lost our power. We're no longer empowered. So if you're reacting to COVID, if you're reacting to anything or anyone outside of you, you've lost your power. Okay? Hey Brenda, how are you, my lovely friend? Are you not at work today? Maybe it's lunchtime? I need to give you a ring and catch up with you. So yeah, judging rewires our brain to judge more. Reacting rewires our brain to react more, because what happens is a chemical reaction creates a reaction in the body which supports the brain, which then supports the body to keep this thing in place. Hey Shakti, long time, to keep this thing in place. So it rewires a synaptic pathway which keeps the physical stuff in place too. So if you keep judging you or judging someone outside of you, if you're triggered, then you keep rewiring it into the brain, which keeps rewiring it out into the quantum field, which keeps rewiring your reality to bring more of it in, which some people call the law of attraction, which I call the law of creation, because we're technically creating it by our way of being and our synaptic pathway we're wiring in. Our brains aren't us, peeps. Thanks, Shakti. I'm talking about how I was triggered last night by something someone said. Something unkind someone said, and it sent me down a little rabbit hole for a little bit. And I pulled myself out of it with my own tools, of course. So, we are a chemical reaction waiting to happen. We are a chemical thing. And with our reaction, we're creating more of that chemical, which then creates more of it happening again. So our body becomes actually addicted to the chemicals. So if you're reacting in anger a lot, then you will stay in anger for a long time, unless you shift it, because the body keeps bringing it back in as well. The body is your unconscious mind. So yeah, we are trained in this. We're trained to react. We're trained to resist. We're trained to judge. What about training yourself to be in gratitude for them and be an allowance of them regardless of their interesting points of views? What about being able to be grateful for someone's way of being that is not yours, and grateful for you not being in unkindness, and grateful for you not judging? So gratitude is another great tool to bring in. Show gratitude for them. You could do it through journaling, or just saying, I'm really grateful for you. If it's someone who's talking to you in front of you, you can acknowledge them and say, I'm really grateful for you. Thank you for your point of view. Okay? It's another way. And it also disarms people. It actually stops them getting more upset by saying thank you for who you are, and thank you for your points of views. You've shown me something else. So there's another tool. Just checking my list to see. So allowance is a huge one. That was what I just talked about then. Allowing them to be them and allowing them to be right. Another one that you can use. I wish I could say this was my own tools, but some of these aren't, of course, but some of them are. Allowing someone to be right. What if you could say to someone, yeah, you're right, I'm wrong. It doesn't mean you think they're right and you're wrong and you're judging. It's just a way to disarm people. If they're yelling at you or angry and you're getting triggered by it, I've done this and it really worked. And I went, okay, I'm sorry, you're right about this and I'm wrong. And they just calmed their farm. They calmed down. It doesn't mean that you're saying they're right, as in, yeah, you're right about it's okay to be unkind and you're right about it's okay to abuse people. It just calms the situation, the chemical reaction, and they're triggering, and then you get less triggered too. So you both calm down, and then you can step into and choose a new way to be, and maybe they will too. So allowing someone to be right can actually disarm the whole thing. And it doesn't mean they're right technically. It just stops that triggering going on with you, and maybe there's some anger there that you would like to stop being triggered. Or maybe you're angry. So, and anger again, it's fine for the moment, and we need it sometimes to get ourselves moving and to get our kids moving. But long term, it's destructive. It makes us unwell. It causes disease, and it wires our brain to bring more things in to be angry about. So it doesn't mean you're giving in. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It doesn't mean that. It just means you're giving something to them that will allow the whole situation to diffuse. Now, I always talk about journaling, because journaling is a brilliant way. So you can always brain dump. If you've been triggered, I did this morning in my journaling and meditation group. I did a brain dump called I am too, or they are too. And I brain dumped around they are too unkind, they are this. And I just dumped everything out as my subconscious and conscious that was sitting there. And it all left. I was no longer upset. I was no longer perturbed by what they did or said. and I was no longer trying to control it. So I wrote, I'm too sensitive and I'm too whatever. And I'm not too sensitive, but that's what popped in, was I'm too sensitive. And all the judgments of me and them popped up in a brain dump, and I dumped it out. Or you could do a should one. They should do this and they shouldn't do that. And then you'll just clear your head of all the shoulds that you have about them. That will clear the triggering too, and will allow you to come back to greater ease and joy and gratitude for them and you. And the last thing I want to talk about is questions, and I do this every time too. Questions rewire the reticular activating system that we have. Now, our RAS, our reticular activating system, only allows your awareness and your brain to see, up to this point, everything you've ever known. All your points of views, whether limiting or not, all your ways of being, and all your synaptic pathways. So if you're attempting to change something with your body, and you've had judgment up to now that you can't exercise or you're not fit, then we need to rewire this, because otherwise you are going to stop the exercise again, okay? Whatever the situation is, there's a rewiring that needs to happen. So if you've got a point of view you're unworthy, then your brain keeps looking for more of it. Your awareness keeps looking for more places where you're unworthy and more proof. The reticular activating system is designed to stop everything coming in at once. Our brain can't bring everything in. Okay, but it also stops new stuff, new ways of being, new synaptic pathways, new gratitude and joy for you, or joy for someone else. Okay? Or gratitude for someone else, so it will stop it. Hey Michelle, how are you? Long time. So some questions you can ask if you're being triggered. Show me allowance for me now. You've got to have allowance for you in that moment, because you're going to go into self-judgment otherwise. So show me allowance for me. Ask this anyway in any situation. Ask this every day. I ask this every day to have allowance of me, because we're trained to judge us. And allowance is just allowing us to be who we are in the moment and be grateful for us. You can also ask, show me allowance for them. Show me allowance for them. Or what's it going to take to have allowance for them? And allow them to be their quirky, weird, wonderful selves with what they think, whether they're being unkind online or not. Okay? It's not about me trying to fix it. Even if it was to me, I've had this online. If I'm trying to fix it, I'm in reaction and fight with them. But if I can allow it, that doesn't mean we sometimes can't act and actually, there's things we have to do if someone's being abusive. I don't mean that. Show me allowance, or what would it take for me to have allowance for me, and allowance for them is a brilliant one. Another one is, what else is possible here I've never considered? Again, your brain will look for another possibility. It'll show you a different way with this person or this situation. What else is possible I've never considered, or just what else is possible? Again, another one I ask every day and all day, and it has my brain and awareness looking for something new. So I've managed to rewire my brain to a gratitude bias out of a more negative, threatened, and fearful bias. So my brain doesn't go down those synaptic pathways anymore like it did, but most people's do. Why? Not because I'm better than them, not because my brain is better, but because they haven't been given the tool. So my job is to give you the tool to rewire your brain. And then you rewire your reality. So everything that starts to show up starts to match the greater gratitude, the greater joy, the greater ease, rather than matching the threatening, fearful, and negative bias. It really does work, people. My life is a complete antithesis of what it was. It might not look like that if you don't know me very well, but I was incredibly unhappy in many areas of my life, and it's done a complete 360. So I promise you this stuff does work. The other thing you can do is ask a question like, show me magic. Show me magic today. Magic is like something that's not in your brain. And if you're in those tricky situations, you want to see something magical show up, because it will take you out of the resistance. It will take you out of the reaction. And it won't be from your brain. It'll be something really seeming random, but actually it's synchronicity. You've created it. But by asking a question, you're willing to ask for something new to show up. A different way to be in the world. A different person to be in the world. a different energetic reaction, a chemical reaction that's different. So we're a chemical reaction, we're energetic at our greatest in our in the atom. When they look at an atom, we're an energy, we're a chemical reaction that's just an energetic being. And when we're willing to use these tools, we change our energy, our way of being, and a different energy can show up, a different way to be in the world. Different people show up, different money shows up. And what I mean by that, it can show up in weird and wacky ways or different jobs. But if you don't rewire that, you don't rewire your reality. And the same stuff shows up, which I call deja vu. So if you're being triggered by the same thing or person all the time, you're in deja vu, okay? The same stuff showing up. So try some of these tools and reach out. Come to www.networknurture.info, or you can head to my Calm, CALMMYFARM.com, calmmyfarm.com. It's $10 a month, where I do 3 live meditations and 3 live journaling sessions where we dig deeper into this stuff and we shift ourselves out of that triggering stuff. I also do 2 pre-recorded journaling and meditations as well. That's $10 New Zealand a month, and you've got 30 days to trial it. Or you might want to try my journaling course, which is a great sort of easy way to dig deep into journaling if you haven't done it for a long time, or if you don't know how to do these particular journaling things that will take you out of that triggered space and bring you back into gratitude, because gratitude will shift everything. And that's journaltojoycourse.com, and that's 12 email sessions with videos. So you'll get your first email, then 3 days later you get another one, and you get to try all these different ways to journal, and you get to take that stuff and dump it out of your brain, because our brain creates all the deja vu. Guys, we're a being, a consciousness who is not our brain, but we've been trained to think we are our brain because our eyes sit here in that part of our body. But if our eyes sit on our shoulders, would we be our shoulders? No. We are a consciousness that lives outside our body that can be measured. So we have to train ourselves and have a new paradigm about seeing our brains. And all those tools I've just gave you are to do that, are to shift our brain into a new paradigm, to get us to see our lives outside of that paradigm, and to stop us being triggered by the same thing all the time, the deja vu. So I hope that helped. And remember, you are a gift. There is a 1 in 400 trillion chance of you being born. You are a total gift. And if you can see that person that triggered you, whether they said something that wasn't that nice or whatever, as a gift too, you won't react the same. We all have our place on this planet, and our space on this planet, and there's a reason we're here. So love you all, and it's great to have some different people on, like Shakti, who lives overseas. I never get to see much these days. Oh, thanks, Fiona. Yeah, I'm really committed to us stepping out of being triggered and allowing other people to have their point of view. And with what's going on the planet at the moment, if we keep being triggered by the outside stuff, by the government or by whom or whatever, we will stay in that rage and that sadness and that grief. We'll stay in it long term. And that impacts our children. We actually change our chemical biology by our reactions. That change our kids as well, because our DNA is energetic, not so much genetic. So we're actually changing our kids' bodies. Sounds weird, but there's lots of science on this. Dr. Joe Dispenza, look up Deepak Chopra, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton. There's science to prove this now. We're changing our kids' bodies and their lives with our chemical reaction, with our way of being, with our being triggered. So if you want to change your children's bodies and their lives and their capacity to be healthy beings, then see if you can step out of being triggered. See if you can stay in your lane and be the boss of your backyard. That's what I call it. That's my saying for it, being the boss of your backyard. Love you guys. So grateful for you. And so lovely to have different people on. Thanks, everybody. Speak soon. Bye.